Okay. I'm ready if you guys are.
Yeah, I can't really get any more ready in the time we have, so just go for it.
We can drag our feet
Just,
for a few more minutes.
well, I don't know. I mean, I just say just be prepared to jump in if you see me falling on my face.
I think we'll sit back and let you work your way out of
You
it.
know, I'll say something super racist or something. Wait, I didn't. I mean, what I meant was.
Oh man. All right. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
We got also, Kurt, we got a lot of like business to take care of at the front of things. So,
Okay.
but I mean, we can. I'm okay with waiting a few more minutes.
Mm, I usually do better when I wing it anyways, so
Okay.
if I try to prepare too much, it just sounds stupid. It sounds stupid if I wing it too, but whatever.
See, if I try winging it, then it ends up like last episode on the train where I say like 450 times.
See, I didn't even really notice that.
Ugh, I hate it. All right, here we go. Hey, Tawny. Tawny, can you turn that down just a little bit?
Get off the shed, Tony.
Freaking blaring Once Upon a Time in Wonderland or something up there.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
The Cubs lost a legend this week. Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks, has passed away at the age of 83. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about Ernie and his legacy. Cubs convention is in the rearview mirror and spring training is not far away, and the Cubs roster is pretty close to what we can expect it to look like to start the 2015 season. The Cubs traded Valbuena and Dan Straley to the Astros for outfielder Dexter Fowler. We will talk about the impact that trade will have on both the outfield and the infield, and we'll check in on Javier Baez, who is playing in the Puerto Rican Winter League. We'll answer listener questions and read some internet muscle flexes. There's all of these topics and more on this episode. It's January 25th, 2015. Christ. There's all of these topics and more on this episode. It's January 25th, 2015, and you're listening to the 292nd episode of the IVNV podcast. All right, guys. I got to start over. I think I figured out what's wrong with the digital recorder.
Okay.
Andy, I think it's from you and I messing with the levels of it at Cubs convention.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Why is everything like so freaking high?
I was asking that about myself. Man, this is nice. This monitor is so big that I can nicely have a window with the cameras and stuff, and then my notes and on side by side.
Might be easiest for you. Do you have room for the chat in there?
Yeah, I probably do.
Because I don't really have room. I got a little, freaking 15-inch iMac or MacBook Pro. I don't have the
Yeah, me too.
84-inch monitor.
5,000 billion K.
And the funny thing is, I'm not even compensating for anything.
All right, here we go. Can you guys hear that music okay?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. No, I was really just checking I was trying to make sure everything was...
Okay. Yeah, it seemed really
Because if it
abrupt.
peaks on this digital recorder, it like just distorts everything, you know?
So is it the live broadcast I click on or the game chat? I've never monitored the chat.
Yeah, it's a live broadcast.
Okay.
And you might need to make... I don't know if that thing starts playing as soon as you get onto that page. You might have to stop it. All right, here we go. The Cubs lost a legend this week. Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks, has passed away at the age of 83. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about Ernie and his legacy. Cubs convention is in the rearview mirror, and spring training is not far away, and the Cubs roster is pretty close to what we can expect it to look like to start the 2015 season. The Cubs traded Valbuena and Straley to the Astros for outfielder Dexter Fowler. We will talk about the impact that trade has on both the outfield and the infield, and we'll check in on Javier Baez, who is playing in the Winter League in Puerto Rico. We'll answer listener questions and read some internet muscle flexes. There's all of these topics and more on this episode. It is January 25th, 2015, and you're listening to the 292nd episode of the IVMV podcast. Hi, and thanks for listening to this week's episode of the IVMV podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Corey, and through a Google Plus Hangout, I am joined by the other two hosts of this podcast.
Hey, it's Andy.
And Kurt.
Because we use Google Plus, we're able to stream these recordings live in video, and if you go to ivmv.com/live on Sunday evenings, you can watch us do this thing every week. And normally we record at 8:30, but sometimes, like tonight, we decided that we want to get it done with sooner, so we start at 7:30. But
we get it done sooner, but we started late.
we want to start it a little bit earlier. So if you would, if you are on Facebook, you can like our page on there, ivmv.com/Facebook, and we are at IVMV on Twitter, and that's normally where we will let you know when we're going live on Sunday evenings. We have a few business items to get out of the way here real quick. We now have international shipping available for our t-shirts and hoodies, and if you live outside of the U.S. and you're interested in buying one of these, you can email me, Corey, at ivnv.com, and we'll figure it out based on where you live and what shipping is to where you live. And if you live in the United States, you can purchase IVMV t-shirts and hoodies at ivmv.com/store. And speaking of shirts, we're giving away a Javier Baez Iowa Cubs t-shirt jersey, and this giveaway is for anyone that contributes to our Patreon campaign. I'll talk more about that Patreon thing later, but if you're interested in supporting this podcast, go to patreon.com/IVMV. That's patreon.com/IVMV. And the cutoff to get in the drawing for the Baez shirt is Saturday. That's January 31st, and we will announce the winner on next week's episode. If you subscribe to our podcast in iTunes or Stitcher, you probably saw the video that I put in the podcast feed this last week, and it is time for the Podcast Awards nomination period. Last year we were finalists for this award, and I was able to go to Las Vegas to represent Kurt and Andy and all of our listeners for that ceremony there in Vegas. And we ended up losing to an ESPN podcast in the sports category, but it was awesome that all of you supported us in the podcast awards, and we would really appreciate it if you would nominate us in the sports category again this year. And if you go to podcastawards.com, enter IVMV in the sports category, and the podcast URL is ivmv.com. And then we would also appreciate it if you would nominate Mommy's Cocktail Hour in the food and drink category, and I Hate Critics in the movies/film category. And then I also do a podcast for my real job, and if you wrote in QC Step in the education category, I'd really appreciate it. That'd be awesome. And your nominations last year helped us with some stuff in this last year, and I think it kind of lends some credibility to our show outside of the Cubs world. It's kind of crazy to go to the awards last year, and the ESPN guys knew who we were, and so that was pretty cool. And so for all of you that have already taken the time to fill out that nomination form, thank you very much for doing that. And the last business matter that we have to announce is the 2015 Ivy Envy bus trip. And because I've talked this entire episode so far, I'm going to turn this over to you guys.
Wait, I didn't know we were doing
this. So we're talking about the Ivy Envy bus trip. That's it.
That's right. It is August 8th. And right now, the tickets are only available to Patreon supporters. And if you're a Patreon supporter, you can buy your tickets now, and you can get $5 off. Regular price is $125. You can get them for $120. And then help me out, Kurt. When do they go on sale to everybody?
February
2nd, 1st,
6th.
That's right.
Sure. A couple weeks
Takes
from
a
now.
village.
So, for anybody that is not familiar with any bus trip or our bus trip, Andy, do you want to explain what it is real quick? What the day looks like?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's the cool thing about it is, normally when you go to a Cubs game, you have to worry about where am I going to park, how am I going to make my way to the ballpark, and so the bus drops us off right there at the ballpark, and so it's really convenient because, I mean, driving, I always stress out about that. And then also you can bring all the the food and what you want to drink on the bus too, so you can have a few beverages before you get there, so then you're also with a lot of Cubs fans, so it's like a little community of fun that heads up there together, and in the past we've all suffered together, and this year we're hoping that we'll get to celebrate together, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Right, so your $125, that covers your ticket for the seat. We have infield reserve, or whatever it's called. I think it's called infield reserve, but there's seats that this is going to be, early August. It'll be hot, but these are seats that are in the shade. That's what I've been told. So that's kind of nice for those of us with fair complexions like Kurt and I have. Those are things I take into consideration when I'm going to a ballpark.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I mean, we get on the bus, and you can just sit back. You don't have to worry about a thing, and so the $125, it covers your ticket to the game and the bus ride and everything. And I mean, it's kind of one of those things that, like, at first it seems like, I don't know, that's $125, that's a lot. Like, I've seen other bus trips, and I think, like, I don't know if that's worth it. But then when you think about it, you don't have to pay for gas, you don't have to pay for parking, you can drink 3 or 4 drinks before you even get into the ballpark, for the whatever cost you have at the grocery store, significantly cheaper than the $10 a beer, $10 a beer you would spend inside Wrigley Field. And then you can just, if you get out in the sun and you're hot and tired, or you drink too much, you don't have to worry about driving home or anything like that. You don't have to worry about getting back to the train station at a certain time or anything. It's really convenient, and it's a ton of fun. I mean, I would, as somebody that's paid for bus trips before, it is so worth it.
Yeah, it's the only one I've ever been on, but it's fun for sure. Takes all the stress out of it, like you said, and it's fairly family friendly. Like you said, there'll be some beverages consumed, but people don't get too rowdy. And we ask that you don't, but it's still a ton of fun. We're not
right.
And for anybody kind of balking at the price, I mean, I think if you look into bus trips in general, our bus trip is sort of at the low end of the spectrum as far as, you're going to find for cost. So it actually is a good price.
Yeah, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. It's in August, but
I can't wait either because it's the one thing I'm actually going to participate in. So you guys get to go to convention and spring training.
Oh, Kurt, I forgot to tell you, Andy and I aren't doing the bus trip. It's all on you.
That's fine. I'm driving. Driving the bus.
Well, it does. I saw it was pretty sweet. You put the IVMV logo on a bus for the graphic, Corey.
Yeah.
Kurt did that.
Oh, that was Kurt? Okay.
I have Photoshop skills.
Well, yeah, we own our own bus.
It's not a bad idea. If we could get some more Patreon supporters, we could buy a bus and just do it all the time.
Heck yeah.
Granted, it's going to be a short white bus, but
there's like 8 seats in it. So yeah, it is in August, and I promise we're not gonna like talk about the bus trip every week between now and then. But
every other week at least.
right. So if you're a Patreon contributor and you want to get your seats, you can get them now. Just email me. That's the way to do it. I can't really if I put it up on the site, then anybody can buy them, and I kind of want to just give our Patreon supporters a little bit of a added benefit for supporting us. So yeah, email me if you would like to buy these tickets and you support on Patreon. And otherwise, February 6th, I believe that's a Saturday, maybe Friday, Saturday, something like that. And they will go on sale that day for everyone else. And by the way, I know that I had had a lot of people asking me about it. We haven't done a bus trip in a couple years, mainly because the Cubs haven't been very good. And the last trip that we did, it took me longer to sell it out than I wanted, and so it just kind of made me nervous. But the reason we're doing it this year is I've had a ton of people ask me about it over the last 6 months or so, and I've already had a bunch of people say that they're going and taking groups of their own. So I think this thing could sell out pretty quickly. One more thing here real quick. Next week's episode is going to be a little bit different. Andy, Kurt, you guys are coming out here to our place, help me clean out the chicken coop, and Michael from Galesburg. Chicken coop joke didn't go anywhere. I'm gonna have to edit
You
that
didn't
out.
pause for effect.
Well, I thought that might make it more awkward if I was like, the chicken coop, ha ha ha. You guys are gonna help me clean out the chicken coop.
Well, I'm so used to chicken coop jokes, so I mean, it just kind of rolled off my back.
No, I cleaned it up this weekend, guys. Don't worry about it. You'll get the delicious farm fresh eggs though.
All right.
The next morning. But you guys are coming out here, and Michael from Galesburg will be joining us, and we will be recording a baseball card episode. We did a baseball card episode our first season, and we're just gonna, talk about baseball cards. We'll have a tournament of crazy-looking baseball cards from the '80s, and it should be a really fun off-season episode. I know a lot of people enjoyed that. I think that when we were first starting out, I think that episode probably got more, traction than anything we had done before that. So it's quite a bit of fun, and if nothing else, it'll be fun to hang out with you guys and Michael. I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah, you guys are on notice. I finally acquired a Bip Roberts card, so he's been noticeably absent from our last one. He was noticeably absent. So Bip Roberts will make an appearance. I can plan that. I can promise you that.
Well, and Andy, I kind of have to call you out. Kurt, be prepared. So we're going to do this tournament like we did last time, kind of a round robin tournament where you have to play your craziest card. Andy confessed to me today that he's made eBay purchases to prepare for this competition.
Yeah, I bought a couple cards online.
I haven't even gone through them. I did pull out the box that contains all the boxes of cards, so I still have to go through them.
But mine will be a mixture of cards I owned before and a few that I purchased.
Okay.
It's going to be hard for me not to find how to figure out which ones I played last time. I'm going to have to review last.
I think it's been long enough. You can just go for it again. I think repeats are okay.
And you know what?
I'm going to try not to.
I think I might have a couple of yours still, Corey, that I need to give back to you.
Oh, that could be. Don't worry, it was only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
Is it like legally mine by now?
Probably. It surely wasn't anything worth anything. Okay, well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Cubs lost a legend this week, and he was legendary enough to be known as Mr. Cub. And I think I was thinking about this today, I think a lot of our listeners are our age or younger, and I would say that you'd probably have to be, around 50 years old or older to know Ernie Banks as a player. I think we kind of knew him as like a Cubs personality, maybe. So honestly, I mean, I had known that Ernie Banks was a good baseball player, but I hadn't really ever like dug into his stats and really looked at him, and I was surprised that that he wasn't just the positive Cubs personality that I guess I thought I knew him as, but he was like a really damn good baseball player, better than I guess than I had realized that he was. But Kurt, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about Ernie Banks as a player?
Okay. Well, I mean, most of you are probably somewhat familiar with him, but I'll just kind of give a few of the highlights.
Some people out there don't remember before Ryan Terrio, so
no. But he played 19 years, all for the Cubs. 14 of those years were All-Star years. He won the MVP award twice in back-to-back seasons in 58 and 59.
I believe he was the first player to win back-to-back.
Right, and he on losing teams, which is also of note. It has happened before, but it's pretty rare. And I believe he beat out some guy named Hank Aaron and Willie Mays, I think is his name, for the MVP award. So yeah, that's he beat out some pretty good players for those MVP awards. And let's see, he played in 2,528 games. He's been retired. Had been retired for 44 years, and he still holds franchise records for hits, intentional walks, sac flies, and RBIs. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how far to go into stats, but we don't see this kind of player anymore. A guy who plays 19 seasons for one team and sort of becomes the player for that team. So it's
minus Derek Jeter.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, that's how rare it is,
Right. And it is also like I can't say that I'm choked up, but a lot of times you hear about the celebrities and the athlete deaths, and you kind of think, oh well, that's too bad. But this is one where it really did kind of hit me. Santo, I guess, was kind of like this, but this one even more so, just because he was such a person. I mean, he was Mr. Cub. You don't earn that name, for nothing.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at his stats today too, and the 4 seasons, 1957 through 1960, in those 4 seasons he had a combined WAR of 31.5. And in that stretch, those 4 seasons, he had 176 home runs.
And I think
to have that much power, and his strikeout rate was just between 10 and 12% during that stretch.
And I think too, it's also of note, like, he wasn't a huge guy. Baseball Reference lists him at his playing, size is 6'1" and 180, and that's not a huge baseball player. 180 is not a power hitter kind of a build, and in 58 he hit 47 home runs.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have the fact that he was the first African American Cubs player. And he really, he lived through segregation, was born in the South, and started with the Cubs just a few years after Jackie Robinson broke the barrier. And so, there's no doubt he experienced racism throughout his career. And to stay, such a positive person. And I don't know, I obviously I never got to see Ernie Banks play baseball. I met him once. Did you guys ever get a chance to meet him?
I never did, no.
Yeah, so when I met him, it was at Cubs Caravan a few years ago, and literally the nicest athlete I've ever met. And I'm not just saying that because he's passed away. Like, insanely nice. in that Comcast special, I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it that Kaplan did
I
aired.
didn't really want to see it.
I DVR'd it, so I guess we can watch it when you guys are out
Oh
here if
yeah,
you want.
that'd be cool.
Ernie talked about. I thought this was really interesting. He talked about not wanting to know what other players did, but who they were. And I think anybody, I just met Ernie Banks once, and I think anybody that met him, you saw that philosophy in action. So there was a line to meet him at this event, and it was really long and slow, but it was because he was talking so much to each person. I mean, seriously, probably like between 3 and 5 minutes with each person. And when my daughter and I got up there, first I think he asked her if she had any brothers or sisters, and she told him that she had a sister, and then he said, "Oh, so what's she doing right now? Where is she?" Just like starting a conversation, and it was amazing because like an autograph line, you don't really see stuff like that. And so then he asked her about school, and he asked her if she played softball or baseball, and then she told him that she played t-ball, and he said, "Oh, well, tell me about your team." And this was like with like hundreds of people in line behind us. So instantly I'm like feeling like really bad, like, oh man, these people behind us, and we were really close to the cutoff. But I think he was just kind of like a grandpa figure when you met him.
Mm-hmm.
He had that kind of like, here, sit on my lap and let's just have a conversation. That's kind of the vibe that I got from him, and I think it sounds like that was kind of everyone's experience when they met Ernie Banks. And I think that's what he was to our generation and those younger. He was a Cub legend, and like Ron Santo, he loved the Cubs, and he was extremely optimistic, and he just loved the Cubs, loved Wrigley Field, and I don't know, it's really a bummer,
Yeah, really
I mean,
sad to see him go.
right? Like I really wish that I could have. I don't know. I wish I would have met him more than once, just because you could. I don't know. He kind of had that like, how there's just some older guys, like the grandpa guys, they just have that like twinkle in their eye. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's just.
And life didn't grind that out of him either. It's like it was there when he was a player,
Right.
and it seemed to just stay with him his entire life. And I think that's what just made him so beloved. And
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think, man, it's so disappointing that his statue had been moved outside of Wrigley. It wasn't there this week.
Yeah. I guess aren't they moving it to like Daily Plaza or whatever?
Yeah, they're gonna set it up out there, so people will be able to pay their respects there. But it would have been cool if it were in front of Wrigley right now.
Yeah. And it's when a legend, a Cubs legend like Ernie or Ron, when they pass away, it's just, these are guys that loved the Cubs, loved the city of Chicago, and never got to see the Cubs win at all. And I think that these figures kind of remind us of the Cubs fans in our families that kind of helped shape us as Cubs fans, and also never got to see the Cubs win at all. Like I couldn't help but think that, like, the years that Ernie Banks played and Ron Santo played, like that was like the heyday for like my grandpa, who helped shape me as a Cubs fan. And so, when these Cub legends pass away, it just kind of reminds you of that era and those people that helped shape your fandom. Andy, I think you took issue with me using the word fandom over last weekend.
Oh, that's okay. You can say fandom.
Okay. So obviously our thoughts are with Ernie's family and all of those that were close to him and are grieving right now. And I know that I think they're having some like services up in Chicago, maybe Wednesday, sometime this week. So, if you live up in the Chicago area and this is something you might be interested in, Google it. Well, I guess there's never an easy segue or transition from something like that, but let's talk about the 2015 Cubs. This week, the Cubs traded Valbuena and Dan Straley to the Astros, and in return, they got Dexter Fowler. So tell us about this trade, Andy.
Yeah, the Cubs acquired Daddy Longlegs, which is his nickname apparently. But anyway, at Cubs convention, we heard a fan ask Joe Maddon what he was going to do about the leadoff hitter, basically, the 2015 Cubs, and this was prior to the Fowler acquisition. And so the Cubs kind of answered that question here in acquiring Dexter Fowler. And so what they did is he's a free agent in 2016, so they had to send a couple players to the Astros for him, and he won't be a free agent until, did I just say that? He won't be a free agent until 2016. So the Cubs had to try to avoid arbitration with him for this season, upcoming season. They paid him $9.5 million for 1 year. So that was about the midpoint between what Fowler had filed for and what the Cubs countered with. And so the Cubs got that done really quickly, and so now they can move on and looking forward to the season. But the thing about Fowler is he gets on base a lot. He has a 370. He had a 375 OBP in 2014, and about 340 is considered to be above average by Fangraphs. So it gives you an idea of just how much this guy is able to get on base. His career mark is 366. So he also draws a lot of walks. He has a 12.5 career base on balls rate, which is 10% is considered to be above average. So he's even above that as far as his walk rate. The thing that keeps his batting average down a little bit is his strikeout rate is is kind of average, really. He strikes out 21.4% of the time for his career. So that's about average. Now the thing is that as far as defensively, he can be a little bit of a liability. His fielding percentage is okay, but his arm supposedly is below average. So that could be an issue. In fact, a couple of the sites I looked at even said that maybe he would even be better suited to play sort of a corner outfield spot. So, but anyway, I think that we can expect him to play the lion's share of the games as the starter in center field for the Cubs. But the Cubs do have other options to put out there as well to kind of mix it up. But he figures to be the guy in center field for the most part.
I'm curious, before we kind of dig into Fowler and what this means for the roster and everything like that, I'm curious, are you guys with me? I was kind of bummed to see Valbuena leave, and I was just kind of thinking about how much my opinion of Valbuena changed over those 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, because there was a little bit of a period there where we really kind of hated Valbuena almost.
It was mostly bat flip oriented, but we.
Oh, I love that. That wasn't.
I never did. I can't say I ever loved the bat flip.
I don't think you loved it at first, Corey.
No, I think you hated it too.
I don't know. I think what I think it was just that, at the time, like when the Cubs first got him, if it just felt like that Cubs roster was not very good. And it was just kind of like deflating to see a guy like Valbuena as your starter every day. And then I kind of feel like maybe he had these skills all along, and if I had his stats pulled up in front of me, I'd probably realize, know this or not. But I really grew to appreciate his patience at the plate. How many pitches he saw, and his and all his ability to draw walks and stuff like that, and really just kind of. I seem to remember there being like, okay, I'm going to sound crazy here, but I swear, wasn't there a game this year where he saw something like 40 or 45 pitches in the game? Do you guys remember this?
I do vaguely remember that. He always saw so many pitches, though.
Right. Like, I seem to remember there being one game where he just saw an insane amount of pitches. And, and his defense was really kind of surprisingly good at times, too. And I think I just kind of changed my mind about him during his time with the Cubs.
I do. Yeah, I think he was such a contrast to a lot of the other players. About he did get on base. He seemed to be a little bit clutch once in a while. I mean, if you look at his numbers, that they're not stellar. I mean, his batting average is like 229 career. He had a good year last year. He only hit 249, but he was one of those guys that I don't know. He seemed to sort of be there when you need him. So I think he was such a contrast for a lot of the other frustrations we had last year with Baez striking out all the time late in the season, and he was sort of like the veteran presence, even though he wasn't that old,
Right.
to some degree. And I don't know. I mean, I grew to like him a lot more in the last couple of years, but especially last year. But so yeah, I think a lot of Astros fans are probably going to pull up his Baseball Reference page and think, man, we didn't get much here. But I think Valbuena's he's a solid player. So.
And I'm not sure. I think that there's some speculation that the Astros still might plan to move him. There's not a great deal of good third baseman right now. That's a position in baseball that's a little bit weak, and so he does have a little bit of value because of that. I don't know. I think if he does stick around with the Astros, I think as soon as they see that first bat flip on a walk, I think they're going to fall in love.
Well, and I think I tweeted something about now the Cubs are going to have a bat flip shaped hole in their heart. And somebody tweeted a gif of Dexter Fowler. He's like, oh, Dexter Fowler's going to fit right in there because they tweeted like a gif or something of Fowler flipping his bat. And he seems to be pretty adept at it, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. It's driving me nuts. I'm trying to find like an article or something about that game where he saw a ton of pitches, but I can't seem to find it. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of like we were pretty hard on Valbuena early on, and I really did. I really did grow to appreciate him, and I'm kind of bummed to see him leave. I knew that he obviously wasn't going to be. He wasn't going. It's not like he was going to have a solid spot by midway through this season. I mean, he was kind of the odd man out.
And it's pretty clear that the Cubs really needed somebody at the top like Fowler,
right,
who could really get on base. Now, don't expect Fowler to tear it up on the base paths a ton. I mean, he is quick, but he only has 94 stolen bases in his 7-year career. Really, six years playing full time.
Yeah, and I don't know much, but I mean, I don't really care so much about somebody's stolen bases or whatever, as long as they're smart on the base paths.
Yeah, and I don't think the Cubs would go after him. I mean, would want him as much if he, in addition to being perhaps a defensive liability, then also just not being very intelligent when it comes to just baseball smarts.
A collector of toot blands.
Yeah.
So the addition of Fowler, it obviously impacts the roster and how the players on the roster are used. So, I guess the question is the player that will be most impacted by Fowler will probably
Ryan
be
Sweeney.
I'm thinking Alcantara, but
yeah.
I mean, he was kind of penciled in as the starting center fielder for the season.
Yeah, I think that was our expectation going into it, but he's going to get bumped probably for more of a platoon role. He'll play some center when Fowler needs a day off, and then I would guess he'll play some spot infield starts when those guys need a day off. So initially I was a little bit bummed that Alcantara would lose some playing time because I think he's got a lot of potential, but he hasn't earned anything yet. He's still young and he's got a lot of work to do.
But because he is so versatile, I mean, they've kind of talked about him being that super platoon type player, that can really or super utility player that can pretty much play almost everywhere. And so, yeah, he will get his at-bats and stuff like that.
He will, especially against right-handed pitching, too, since Fowler hits righty. So, I mean, that gives him an opportunity to kind of work him in a little bit more, play matchups a little bit.
Right.
That way.
And plus, Oh, I was going to say that Madden had Ben Zobrist down in with Tampa, and that there's a lot of talk that Madden really enjoyed having Zobrist to kind of use wherever he wanted, and that Alcantara can kind of fill that role, and it's a role that Madden obviously knows how to utilize because of the success that Zobrist had down there.
Yeah.
So I guess the Cubs appear to pretty much be done making big moves this offseason. I suppose something could happen, but I think they definitely strengthened the team this offseason with the big agent
A little bit.
Yeah, the big free agent signings, but then also some of these smaller signings and trades. If you look at the roster right now, I think things are kind of set in place, at least to start the year. I guess they still have the catcher situation with Wellington Castillo to figure out, and he'll probably be moved. And looking at the infield, the departure of Valbuena, it does make the third base situation a little questionable, at least for the first few weeks of the season. I guess you would have thought that Valbuena would be the starter to start the season. Now it looks like Bolt will maybe be the starter until Bryant arrives. Otherwise, I think if they start moving guys around to see who fits where, they could shift Castro or Baez to third. And Baez, if he even starts 2015 with the Cubs, which I kind of think he won't. I think he's going to start in Iowa, but the Cubs do have some flexibility at second base with La and kind of, as you mentioned, Kurt Alcantara can play just about anywhere. So I think the lineup will start to be, well, at the start of the season will be a little bit fluid, I guess, but as long as guys stay healthy, I think that by mid-season we'll see the most steady and consistent Cubs lineup that we've seen in years.
Yeah, I hope so.
And that'll be nice. Like in all these, these past couple of years where they've had like record numbers of players, playing on the big league roster over the season. So that number is going to keep going down. It went down slightly last year, and
I think it'll go down drastically this year.
Yeah, significantly.
And this is the year that they're going to want to try to get some guys established. I think, there's positions up in the air, but they're going to want to get wherever Baez is going to land, and Castro, and whenever Russell gets there, they're going to want to get guys kind of settled into a spot so they can be that consistent guy wherever they land this year, I think. Because you don't want to be still shuffling guys in defensive positions going into 2016, 2017 when you expect to be a ton better.
Right. Well, and I guess that's kind of leads us into the next conversation, since we've kind of talked about Javier Baez. A few weeks ago, Andy, you briefed us on how he's doing in the Puerto Rican Winter League. He wasn't doing great, and things really haven't gotten better.
No, they haven't, as now the Dominican Winter League has moved into the playoffs, their playoffs. He's almost 0 for in the playoffs, so he started out 0 for 9. And, it's crazy. I had to look at multiple sites to kind of figure out exactly how he's doing, but he did finally get a hit in yesterday's game. He got a double. And so he's really scuffling. I mean, he had a really high strikeout rate during the regular spate of games in the Winter League, and then now in the playoffs it's kind of continuing. Madden apparently went down this weekend to see him play.
He wanted to more than see him play, though.
Yeah, and Madden apparently told Javi that he just wants to see him smile.
I love it.
And Javi couldn't do it. He's like, nope. No.
Well, he did. He got a hit in that game finally, but Madden was quoted as saying he's trying too hard, and it just seems like that's pretty obvious. It just really does seem like he wants so badly to succeed, and he's just trying to kind of grind out that success, squeeze that success from a stone or something. And I think Madden isn't on the right track already by just trying to kind of get him lighten up a little bit. I mean,
well, and I think going down there really shows him some support too.
Yeah, and that's what Javi also said something along those lines, is that he was pretty surprised to see that he was there and that he cared that much to actually come down there. So, he's already trying to build that relationship. Madden always is talking about trust, and so he's already trying to build that trust with his new players, and just I think he really is trying to kind of send Javi the message that he doesn't have to set the world on fire from day one with the Cubs. Like he needs, he doesn't have to be the guy that single-handedly helps the Cubs make it to the World Series or something like that.
Right.
He just has to be who he is and, be the player that, everybody knows that he can be. And it's not going to be a guy that is going to hit for a high average or anything, but it's a guy that's going to strike out a little bit less, hopefully, and continue to hit homers and do some damage offensively. So,
well, and I think maybe to kind of show him, like, this is development, and in year one or year two, you're not going to be what you hope to be eventually. What your vision for yourself is. It's not going to happen in season 1 or 2. Even, and maybe some, Baez would look at somebody like Starlin Castro and think, well, he walked in and kind of did it right away at an early age, so why can't I?
Imagine his vision for himself. It has to be so lofty.
Yeah. Which, if you have those lofty expectations, I think that your psyche would be damaged pretty quickly when it looks like, oh, maybe that won't happen. Instead of saying, like, this is what I need to do to make that happen. And who are we to try to say what Javi's psyche is? But
yeah, and the feeling around this team is changing rapidly from a sort of young, figure-it-out team to probably, if you're Javi, feeling some pressure, like, oh boy, I better turn this around fairly soon, or
because now we're supposed to be good. Yeah,
coming behind me that could just bump me.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's crazy to think that Javier Baez is feeling heat from youngsters.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, it's hard to say, what sort of projections we can make for him going into spring training based on what we've seen this winter. I really think that's kind of incompatible to a certain extent. I really think it's worth having a wait and see what happens in Arizona here coming up soon.
Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think? I think he's going to start in Iowa.
But from the way he's playing, I suppose now I would probably agree with you. But I don't know. But then I wonder, like, is that going to damage him just as much? I mean, is that going to make him feel like, man, Well,
I think he's got to get some. I think he's got to get some confidence. And if that's not happening at the major league level, then maybe a little. Everybody wants to go to Des Moines in April. Come on.
That's right. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, but I do kind of expect him to start in Chicago, I guess.
And you look too at, like, how he hasn't performed. He didn't perform great when he came up with the Cubs, and he hasn't really played well in the Winter League. And I saw that he had been dropped from batting second in the order to seventh in the Winter League, and I don't know. That's got to have an effect on a young guy like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, with this kind of sustained trouble, I guess is what I'll call it. It's sort of like, in golf they call it the yips. He's got the yips. I mean, he's better than this, and
right.
I think at some point it's just gonna click for him, and it'll change quickly. That's my hope, at least. So
yeah, I think
it's just not this bad. I mean,
right. I think you're kind of right, and I think that, like, if he can get a little bit of success going, then he's not going to be. Then he can start having a better, maybe a little bit. That would lead him to be a little bit more patient at the plate and not feel like, okay, well, I struck out twice already this game. I need to hit a ball halfway to, the moon, to show that I belong here. But honestly, I just think, like, if he doesn't get that confidence established in Arizona, I think he has to start in Iowa, because it's not going to get any better. If he can't hit, if this is happening in spring training,
mm-hmm.
It's only going to be worse in the regular season.
Yeah, and if he can't hit Winter League pitching.
Right, because in spring training, you're facing a lot of like double A guys too, in those games, and maybe a bat or two, you're facing, especially early in spring training, you're facing major league talent there, but you're also facing pitchers that are working on things, um, and I just think if he doesn't really tear things up in spring training, I think he's got to start in Iowa. And hopefully he handles that well and takes advantage of the situation.
Yeah, and if he does, even if he doesn't, we'll be maybe taking in some cold weather games in Des Moines.
Right. Yeah. So, but April in Des Moines could look like Addison Russell, Javier Baez, and Chris Bryant in the infield. Except I looked, and their first home game isn't until April 17th, which happens to be the date that the Cubs could call up Chris Bryant.
Oh boy.
Yep. So let's look at some listener questions.
Before you do that,
sorry.
Corey, I wanted to say in the chat, Casey's in there, and he found on Fangraphs that on April 22nd of 2014, Valbuena saw 40 pitches.
Thank you, Casey. I'm glad I'm not crazy.
You weren't imagining that.
And I did not have the time to dig into the game logs to find it.
That is a crap ton of pitches for one guy to see.
I know. So we have some questions here from listeners, and we asked for these on Facebook and Twitter. Again, ivmb.com/Facebook, and we are at ivmb on Twitter. As for these on Sunday mornings, and then also we are on Instagram at ivmb podcast. So the first question comes from Jason from New Mexico. He says, "Not my idea. I saw it on Twitter. How do you feel about the Cubs scheduling a home doubleheader on 9/17 to honor Mr. Cub? I think it's a cool idea, but too late in the season." I'm not sure. Like, what's the September 17th significance? Is that like the date that his career started or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess you guys don't either.
No, I'm sorry. I was too busy doing chat stuff, so I didn't hear the beginning of that.
But basically the question is...
Sorry, I just looked up. It was his debut in 1953.
Oh, okay. All right. So how do you feel about the Cubs scheduling a home doubleheader? And maybe
I think it'd be cool if they could work it out.
And obviously, I'm sure anybody listening knows this, but Ernie was famous for saying, "It's a great day for a ball game. Let's play two."
Yeah, beautiful day for baseball.
Yeah, let's play two. That's the gist of it. Yeah, I mean,
I think they are doing a doubleheader sort of to honor him in spring training. I mean, or no, maybe it just happened to be the
I think
first
it's a split squad.
The split squad, yeah. So that wasn't intentional. It was just happened to be.
Yeah.
I would say anything they do to honor Ernie, I'm all for it.
I think, just maybe kind of hope that a doubleheader happens this season.
It'll happen, but it would be like kind of lame to be like, "Oh, we had a rain out, and so now we're honoring Ernie." I mean, I hope they plan it out a little bit.
I don't know. I think it's too late to try to plan out a doubleheader. I'm not sure like that would go over real well. Like a scheduled. Seems like there was a scheduled doubleheader. Was it last year or the year before? Didn't the Cubs have a scheduled doubleheader? But I can't remember why it happened. Oh, I remember. It happened because they had that that Pride Parade.
Yeah.
And so they I think they did a doubleheader on a Sunday because that parade was on a Saturday, and just for the neighborhood's sake, I guess. Let's see. So Nate, he says, who would you rather have in your rotation? Chris Sale and Shark, or Lester and Arrieta?
This is all knee-jerk reaction. Corey and I were at the same kid's birthday party today, so we actually kind of talked about this a little bit. But my knee-jerk reaction to that is Lester and Arrieta. The only thing is I think about the youth of Sale, and then also the durability of Shark. And I see Arrieta's. He hasn't pitched a full season yet, and has had injury issues. So I kind of see him as having very similar stuff to Samardzija, but maybe not quite the same durability.
It's also hard to say that Samardzija has durability when he's only been a starter for 2 seasons, 3.
Yeah, I mean, but he's had a ton of innings in those 2 seasons. I mean,
Well,
and
plus he has a lot of life left in that arm because he didn't really pitch much in college.
right. So
Uh,
I think we can still reasonably expect him to be a real innings eater, for the White Sox.
So you say Lester and Arrieta?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to not. I mean, it's hard
We
to
are a
not
Cubs
choose that.
podcast.
We are Cubs fans, yeah. But I mean,
I think
it is a bit of a tough decision. I mean, Sale is he's so good. He's really good. I mean,
Yeah.
if you put Lester versus Sale, I'd probably take Sale. But you put the two
especially
together, I think I'd take the Lester Arrieta.
I want to go to the Lester versus Sale matchup.
they did play each other. They did match up last season because I was like, I googled Chris Sale versus John Lester to see if anybody had like written an article on that. And it came up with like an MLB TV discussion of the game that they pitched against each other. But I think I would, I'm kind of torn. And the one thing that would make me kind of lean towards Chris Sale and Samardzija would be that Sale is significantly cheaper than Lester. If you had to take like payroll into consideration, I think Sale isn't it. I think he has like a 5-year, $31 or $32 million deal, and so I don't. If we're putting Sale and Lester kind of on at the same level, Sale is way cheaper, which would then free up money to buy another pitcher. So I think maybe I would go with Sale and Samardzija.
Boo.
It's troubling.
But let me just be clear that I'm very content with Lester and Arrieta right now.
All right. Well, as long as we're clear on that.
Okay. Ed says, who would you like to see get that 5th spot in the rotation? And then a similar question came from at Trauma CPW on Twitter and says, who do you see winning that elusive 5th starter spot? I get the feeling most Cubs fans want Turner, but I feel it's Edwin Jackson's to lose.
I feel Edwin Jackson's already lost it. I don't think I think he's gonna be a bullpen guy, no question. He's gonna be the long man in the bullpen.
So do you think they don't even give him? It's not even like a question in spring training. They don't even. The idea of him starting is just not happening.
If he just like destroys in spring training in every appearance, I think it wouldn't be right for them to not at least consider him. But I think he's pretty much almost for sure lost it.
I would agree with that. I think he's lost it, except save him for a miracle in spring training. But I don't know who you said read that, but I would agree that Turner's the popular choice. I mean, if he could have a sort of Arrieta-like turnaround, I think that would be ideal. I think he has the most upside. I would love to see him to grab that spot. He'd be my pick.
Yeah, Turner has great stuff. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people though that want to see Travis Wood there too. And then they have some kind of outlier guys too, but
Wada.
Yeah, like Wada. So, but yeah, I vote. I want Turner to really kind of achieve his potential.
Yeah, I would. I guess the reason that I would say that I would like to see Edwin Jackson kind of earn that spot is that it would mean that it would take a big turnaround for him to get there and to have another. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, he was a legitimate starter and, maybe a middle of the rotation type starter. And I think that I don't know, I just think it would be cool if that worked out. I think partially it's just because I feel bad for him. And I would like to see that, but, the Cubs have 8 starting pitchers on their roster, on their depth chart on Cubs.com, so there's a lot of options. And the only reason I would want it to be Travis Wood is I don't think that Travis Wood is I don't think he's going to be with the Cubs very long, And if he pitches well enough to earn that spot, then potentially they could get more in a trade for him. But I don't have anything against Travis Wood. It's not like I don't want to see him be a part of the team. It's just based on what we saw last year. I don't see it really happening with the options that the Cubs have for that spot.
I mean, plus it seems like they're on track to maybe picking up another big name free agent maybe next offseason.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We have one here from Twitter at Cubs fans tweets, and they ask, "Is La Stella just insurance for an adjusting Baez?" And then he says, "Ha, crappy band name, Adjusting Baez." Could be taken a couple different ways, I guess.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
right. I guess like based on what the infield options are over the next couple of years, I don't think La Stella is anything more than insurance.
Especially with the trade of Valbuena displacing Alcantara a little bit, perhaps. I mean, I think that La Stella's only played second base in his career, and I think the Cubs will try to get him some work at other positions to try to maybe develop him into more of a utility man. But I think with Alcantara kind of he's probably going to play more second base now than he would have otherwise, and so I think that kind of muddles La Stella's future with the Cubs a little bit.
Right.
But I do think I guess it's pretty safe to call him insurance because he's a fairly big contrast to Baez, where he's doesn't have a ton of power but gets on base, versus Baez,
right,
ton of power, doesn't get on base.
And I think especially insurance considering that it's not like, oh, if Baez doesn't work, second base is yours. It's going to be, if Baez doesn't work, second base is yours until Addison Russell comes up, and then we'll move someone else. So, yeah. But you know what? We've seen so many of that type of player over the last couple years. I think we're kind of comfortable with that player now, and knowing that if the Cubs don't need him, maybe they can showcase him a little bit and trade him off and get something out. But I think he's a good insurance piece.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is from at Mr. Postman 24501 on Twitter, and he says Mr. I can assume it's a he. Asks, how long is Javier Baez's leash?
Boy, I don't really see him as having a leash. Like I said, I think that if we're expecting him to start out in Iowa, he has to kind of play his way to the bigs again. So I don't see it as a leash type of situation. What do you guys think?
I wonder if the leash though is like his leash to whether or not he goes to Iowa.
I see.
Not like a career leash. I don't know what kind of leash he has.
I think it's safe to say it's fairly long. I think they know how good he could be, and it's too early to give up on him or to sort of shorten the leash too much.
I think his career leash is long, but I think his 2015 starting with the Cubs leash is a little bit shorter.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean I think we all agree that they won't hesitate to have him start out in AAA. I don't see that as being in doubt.
Yeah. The next one's from Matt, and he says, if Chris Bryant was to play outfield, which infielder do you think would be best suited to third base?
Man.
I would have said Valbuena.
Well, I think Baez has quite an arm.
Yes, he does, yeah.
So I would probably pick Baez. But then I would say Addison Russell should play short and Castro should play second. I don't know if the Cubs are willing to do that kind of a shakeup or not, So, but my vote would be Baez for third.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, Baez kind of has a bigger body, I guess. Like comparing him to like Addison Russell or Castro. I think those two guys might have a little bit more range to them. Even though, I mean, Baez does have his range right now, but he's going to fill out more. Even when like we saw him in Single A in Iowa or in Peoria, he had an insanely strong arm then.
Yeah.
compared to most single A players that we had seen come through Peoria. So I would agree with you, Andy.
Yeah, me too. I'd put Baez over there probably.
The next question comes from Anthony, and he says, "Who you got in the Royal?" I'll be listening Monday morning to see how your picks go.
So is Ric Flair still a thing? Is he still?
Okay, so by you asking that question, I assumed that was a pro wrestling thing, and now I know that I'm right.
I just Googled it. So I'm going to try to find who we got here, and I'm going to pick somebody.
Are you going to go with the Iron Sheik? Yeah. Sergeant Slaughter, I think, is looking pretty strong this year. But that's as long as Hulk Hogan goes out early. So, I'm sorry, Anthony. I don't mean to make light of the Royal Rumble. It's just like my wrestling knowledge goes up to like the mid 80s maybe. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, I think, is looking pretty good. But that's as long as Rowdy Piper doesn't put on the magic sunglasses and see the aliens.
I did a fair amount of WCW wrestling on the Super Nintendo or whatever, whichever system it was. No, it was the N64.
You guys,
that was the end of my wrestling knowledge.
You guys have way more wrestling knowledge than I have, and here's what my wrestling knowledge was. My best friend when I was a kid lived across the street from us, and he was a huge pro wrestling guy, and he would watch them like every night that they were on. And my dad and my brother and I, our entertainment for the evening was we would sit in the living room and watch him in his living room, and he didn't know that we could see him. He would like stack up pillows. He would like stack up pillows and like reenact what had been happening. And so we just sat there and watched him and really enjoyed ourselves.
Oh no.
I do remember trying to put my friends in the camel clutch. That hurts. I don't know if you've ever had anybody do that to you. It hurts.
We should do some pro wrestling stuff out here next weekend.
Yeah, let's do
jump
that.
off the chicken coop onto a picnic table.
What's the big? Is Royal Rumble the big one? What's the other? What's the thing that? What's the big one that they?
There used to be WrestleMania. Would be the big one.
I think they had it because Michael, who's going to be out here next weekend, he went to it last year. It was in New Orleans.
I have been to pro wrestling events about 10 years ago, maybe. I can't remember why I went. All I remember from the whole entire thing was this kid who looked to be about 7 or 8 sitting in front of us and giving double middle fingers to all the villains throughout the entire show. Dual middle fingers, just waving them around. 8 years old, gonna go to 2nd grade tomorrow, you know.
Do the same thing.
Oh man. All right, let's move on. All right, well, we have an iTunes review to read this week, guys. You can leave us reviews on iTunes or Stitcher, and those reviews help us move up the charts, and it helps other Cubs fans find us, and we play Chuck Mangione Feels So Good over these reviews because they do make us feel so good. This one is entitled Fun Cubs Podcast, and it is by WraithFear33. And Wraith says, a realistic view of the Chicago Cubs in a fun and sarcastic way, easy to follow along. Please go to the IVMV store and buy something. So I don't know if we kind of sold our merchandise a little strong and he's making fun of us, or he just wants to see people.
He likes those T-shirts.
Yeah, maybe it's somebody that purchased one, but I do enjoy the merchandise advertising on iTunes. So thank you, WraithFear33, and if you would leave us an iTunes review, especially heading into the season here, it'd be cool to have some new Cubs fans find us, or some more Cubs fans find us, and contribute, with listener questions and everything like that. We enjoy all of the interactions. All right, so let's do you guys have any internet muscle flexes?
I don't have one tonight.
No.
Okay, well, I have a couple. So, if you're new to our podcast, we find instances of people flexing their internet muscles. Normally, we look at Cubs.com articles because you can always find good stuff there. But I thought I went outside the box this time, guys. I went to Twitter and Instagram. Instagram is going to be my new go-to for internet muscle flexes because there's some amazing stuff on there. And I'll share one with you, Andy. You might have to help me remember it because I read it to you earlier. But let me get the Twitter one out of the way first. So this one is in response to somebody tweeted the Zips projections, and the 2015 Cubs projections and how they're going to do this year and stuff. So this is what somebody says. Jorge Soler at a win? Are you crazy? Did you see him hit in September? He could hit you out of the park with a swing, and from the sound of it, you're about 700 pounds and living 24/7 in a special bed. You just can't stand that Theo Epstein is going to bring the Cubs a World Series now that he's given up on those dumb sabermetric stats that destroyed the Red Sox after a brief run of success.
He's given up on That reminds me of anybody seen the movie Short Circuit?
I have. I love it.
Talk about Los Locos kicking your balls into outer space.
Yes. Let's go kick your ass.
That's what Jorge Soler will do to you. He'll hit your sorry carcass into outer space.
I just love that though. You just can't stand he's going to bring the Cubs a World Series now that he's given up on those dumb sabermetric stats. Oh God. Okay, so these other ones came from Instagram. And so I was looking because the Cubs had a lot of pictures on Instagram to kind of honor Ernie Banks. So what was the one I read to you earlier today, Andy? Oh, somebody said, so they had two comments in a row. The first one said, "What happened?" And then the next one said, "Never mind."
Oh man.
So it was like a rest in peace Ernie Banks type thing. What happened?
Oh, never.
Oh, I looked into it. Never mind.
It wasn't like Fred Willard saying, "What happened?"
No.
Oh man. Yeah, research on the internet anymore is
It's getting easier and easier. You can
easier.
do it through Instagram now. Okay, so here's a couple more from those Instagram pictures. This one reads, "Rest in peace, but DM me for a Madden movie double clutch coin glitch."
What?
I don't know. Maybe it's the John Madden football or something. I don't know. They're like advertising that you can DM them for a double coin glitch. But I like it that it was like, "Rest in peace, but DM me."
Oh, yeah. There were a number of those. Didn't we talk about a number of those where people are trying to gain from, trying to promote their product or their site or whatever on like a post about Ernie Banks' passing?
Right.
If that's you suck.
Right. Yeah.
But who sees that and is like, "Man, I've been looking for that."
Oh, double coin glitch.
Gotta DM
Sweet.
this guy. You also suck, that person.
Right. Okay, so this next one. Okay, so it's a photo of Ernie Banks, and he's being awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Obama.
Oh no.
And the quote, there's a quote on it from the president, and what. And I don't know if this is something that it must be something Obama said after his death, after Banks' death, but it says, "Somewhere the sun is shining, the air is fresh, his team's behind him, and Mr. Class, Mr. Cub is ready to play too." And this person comments, "I don't care what Obama has to say. He's a worthless White Sox fan."
It's much more mild than I expected it to be.
Yeah. I just thought it was kind of funny. Like, oh, let's not celebrate the life of somebody that was like respected all around baseball, and forget what Obama said. He's a White Sox fan.
Obama every morning goes to his cabinet meeting and says, "All right, let's play two."
All right. Well, This week's episode was brought to you by our Patreon contributors, and thanks to the Hall of Fame level contributors, Dave, Jeremy, Dallas, Charles, Ryan, Andrew, Jane, Cass, Tony, Shane, Michael, and John. A big thanks to our associate producer level contributors, Joshua, Anthony, and Matthew. And thanks to those of you that have jumped on the Patreon campaign in the last few weeks. Josh from Bettendorf, Iowa, Leonard, I guess is how you say it, from Germany, so that's pretty awesome. Adam from Tennessee, and John from East Moline, Illinois. And Adam was the hero this week by being our 50th Patreon supporter. If you enjoy our podcast, you can become part of the IVMV team by checking out our Patreon campaign. Patreon is kind of like Kickstarter for bloggers and podcasters, and it's got a really easy entry point at just $1 a month, and there are perks at every level, and they get better as they go up. And your contributions help us cover the cost of this podcast, and it helps us do extra things that will enhance everyone's IVMV experience. There are things that we would like to do with the podcast, and having those extra funds to work with just makes it makes us much more comfortable with doing some of that stuff. And if you're supporting IVMV through Patreon, this upcoming Saturday, your name will be entered into a drawing for a Javier Baez Iowa Cubs T-shirt jersey. Also, don't forget to go to thepodcastawards.com. Don't forget to go to podcastawards.com and nominate IVMV in the sports category, Mommy's Cocktail Hour in the food and drink category, and I Hate Critics in films and movies. Next week's episode will be the baseball card episode. We had a lot of fun with that last time, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So thanks for downloading and listening, and until next week, go Cubs. All right. Man, we hadn't got to listener questions. I looked at it, it was like 50 minutes, and I was like, holy crap, this is going to be forever. But that was only an hour and 10 minutes. That's not too bad.
Yeah. I definitely feel a little rusty, but...
Yeah. Well, it'd been a couple weeks for you.
Yeah. That's okay. It's getting to that point where I'm really looking forward to real baseball.
Yeah.
Like actually have something. I know.
I mean, pitchers and catchers report in like, what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too far.
Yeah. Thanks for watching the chat, Andy.
Oh, yeah, no problem. No problem.
When are you guys leaving to go out there?
Is it the 13th or 14th?
I'm going to say it's the 13th.
I think that's the day we leave.
It's like 13th through 19th, is that what it is?
Yeah, we're coming. I think we leave there on the 19th. Is that Friday?
Well, that's Thursday. That's the night game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the
yeah,
20th.
We'll leave Friday, we'll leave Friday morning.
One of my work coworkers is going to be there. Well, do you guys ever see, I don't know if you ever see, what's his Twitter handle? Like Iowa Dubois or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I recognize that.
Well, I work with his wife.
Oh, cool.
And they're going to be out there. I don't think they're going to be there at the same time, though. But she asked me about it and was wondering, like, if you guys do a meetup, they'd probably come. But I don't know if it's the same one, same time.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be there. I think we have tickets for the games the 14th through 18th. I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to her and see. Cool.
Yeah. Oh man, it's only 9 o'clock. That's so amazing.
I know.
At some point in the episode, Mac was like going nuclear in there. Like
I saw your chat message.
So I had to mute my mic for a few of those listener questions, and I'm sorry about that.
No, actually, I thought that's what you mean. I didn't see that in the chat or in our chat because I'm not really looking at it very often. But I kind of figured you had. When you didn't jump in, I was like, oh, I bet he muted.
I mean, he was like screaming at Beth. I don't know. When I go in there, she's probably going to be sucking down a beer. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, that's why part of the reason I was late. We had the same kind of experience. Lana trying to put both of them to sleep at the same time. Never goes well.
So I got the Pliny for next weekend. Is that how you pronounce it, Pliny?
Yeah,
Pliny,
Pliny. I'm so excited.
Oh man.
I hope it
I was
lives up
thinking-
to the hype.
I was thinking, how about we each pick up like a 6-pack of
Could mix 6.
something different?
Yeah.
Yeah, either
I
mix
should-
6 or
Oops. Yeah.
What'd you say? What'd you say, Corey?
yeah, either that or like just something like if not a sixer, then just a. I mean, it doesn't have to all be different ones. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Be funny if we all got the same 6-pack.
I think I still have some Jingle Java left.
Pretty good.
It's out of season.
You know, I actually saw some for sale at Walgreens today, and they've been out of it for quite a while.
Well, I won't bring that.
No. I'll bring something good.
I was hoping to have some homebrew cooked up, but you know, free time is not something I have these days. But I do have my full keg system together now. Just
Oh,
don't have any
nice.
beer in it.
I got a case of Old Style in the garage.
Well, that'll do. Do you still have your kegs system, or did you leave it at the house at your old house?
I gave it to my brother.
Oh, cool.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get going so I can get this thing done.
Yeah.
All right.
See you guys later.
Peace.
I guess I'll talk to you before this weekend.
No doubt. I don't know if we'll ever tweet each other again. I mean, if we'll ever text each other again.
Probably
this
not
weekend.
until next weekend.
I think Michael's pretty excited about it.
And he said, does he still have, or do you still have the packs of cards?
Yeah, they're sitting down here.
Oh, I forgot we had those to open.
I know.
Yeah. He was like,
we
"You think
should make a rule where you have to play a card from your pack or something.
Oh yeah, good idea.
That's a good idea.
He asked
Yeah.
me if he should buy more, if I thought that was enough. I was like, yeah, I think you should.
All right, boys.
All right, you
All
guys.
See you guys later.
Peace.